my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello, and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and I apologize. My voice sounds a little bit hoarse today. I've had a week. I was in Puerto Rico. I had mentioned that, I think, on the last episode. That's why we didn't have any shows last week. I spent the week in Puerto Rico, which was amazing. I was running around a ton, shooting a bunch of just content for fun more than anything else, and just getting to enjoy the vibes out there. I got to see my grandfather, who's in his mid-90s and looking amazing. So that was awesome as usual. And then I had basically just hopped off the plane, took a nap, and was back to my normal grind. I was DJing on Saturday. Then Sunday we had my monthly party Con Fuego, and I completely lost my voice after that. So it's actually a miracle that we are even here doing this podcast right now. I've recovered to that point. But we here, and I'm really excited about today's show. I'm really excited in general about kind of the direction of I don't know, my life, what I'm focusing my time, my energy on. If you hear my dog, he of course is deciding to go crazy in the background right now as we started recording. He was completely calm before that. He has a great internal clock of when he should be making noise and when he shouldn't. But anyway, I'm really excited about my wellness brand, Just Be. It's a part of what I really feel like is overall the grander vision of my life and my purpose. And we are getting ready to kind of expand into the next chapter of that and really hone in on the idea of community, which has been, I feel like, at the center of everything I've been doing, since I was even playing in bands as a teenager and things like that. It was the idea of coming together with like-minded people for, the greater good or a common cause. And Just Be, we've been able to do that through our mastermind groups, on a smaller level. But now this is a chance for us to really figure out a way to bring in more people, and not only bring in more people to be a part of it, to indulge in what we're doing, but also to empower other people, and we'll get into kind of the grandiose vision of it all. But for me, I want this platform to be something that is collaborative, for everybody who is a part of it, and also has the opportunity to empower others from our community, give them a platform to have their voice heard, to hopefully eventually, as it's large enough, to financially empower other creatives to, create content for the community. And even beyond that, just having a place for everyone to go to, recharge, right? To regroup, to be inspired, to get feedback, all the different things, that I want to envision for what we're creating here. So I'm just really excited for this next iteration of the Just Be Social Club and Just Be our brand. And in an effort to kind of, I don't know, just kind of give you a bit of insight into what we've been doing, where we want to go, and kind of some of the experiences and relationships that have been built. I actually invited on a handful of members of the Just Be Social Club. We had 2 groups total over the last year, and I invited a handful of our family to just hop on the podcast and share their experiences, but also, I think, more than anything, as a means to showcase that you're not alone in your longing for more. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway is beyond just hearing me talk about this, but now you're going to hear some of the people who actually listen to this podcast, who support all that I do and have found a sense of community in this work and in these conversations. And I hear from a lot of you on Instagram and things like that about, the podcast providing that for you. And I love when I get to platform those of you who have been a part of this journey, to once again reiterate just how we are truly not alone in all that we struggle with, all that we're longing for. and there's such a beauty and comfort within that. So I invited a handful of the members of the Just Be Social Club who've gone through the experience thus far, to kind of just talk about what drove them to look for something more, the experiences that they've had. I also have my partner Brenda, who's an incredible coach as well, who is helping run the Just Be brand as well, and is a partner with me in this whole entire process. So yeah, that's what we're going to be sharing today, just a conversation of our experience over the last year of really doing these masterminds, of getting together, of pushing ourselves for growth, and trying to fill some voids in our life in a healthy manner, So that'll be today's episode. So we'll do that in our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente. All right, so on the show today, we have a bit of a reunion of sorts here. It makes me very happy to bring together this group. Well, particularly, we also have some OG group members who I haven't seen in a couple months, so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we're just gonna have a conversation about our experience together. I've with the exception of Bren, who I've been working with, I think for almost 2 years will be going on at this point, if I'm not mistaken. The rest of y'all, I've known you guys for a minute, a couple of you, but we really got to consistently see one another on a regular basis for the course of a year. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful sort of thing to all come together in that way, beyond just like random social media interactions, beyond randomly just like a avatar that comments on random things, or that you kind of come into contact with back and forth via the DMs or comments on a live or something like that. But to actually like get to know the people behind it all has been a beautiful experience. And as we're getting ready to kind of like really try to open up the Just Be Social Club idea to a lot more people because of just how amazing it's been, I wanted to bring on a couple of you guys who have been a part of the process and have been super active in it with us, to just talk a bit about it. I feel like we never really get a chance to get real-time feedback or to allow y'all to really I don't know, just express all that we went through together, I feel like, within this whole thing. So I'm going to just so people can begin to recognize voices, because there's a few of you, and this can get a bit chaotic. I'm just going to introduce you by name, just so you can say your hello, so people listening can get the recognition of the voice here. So we have Jade, who has been a long time homie virtually, and now we've been able to connect a lot more. Jade, if you want to say hello to the people so they hear your voice.
Virtual homie checking in.
Who I actually,
all the people.
Yeah, I just met Jade's mom as well via Instagram the other day, which is a beautiful thing as well. So we're just out here.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah, it's just absolutely
Should be
amazing.
Out here.
Listen, I love it. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Chelsea as well. Hello, Chelsea.
Hey.
Okay, we got Chelsea.
How y'all doing?
That's a very recognizable voice, so you'll know Chelsea with the little southern twang that she gets in there every once in a while. And then Antonio as well, who I was just on his podcast, which we'll get into all that as well. But Antonio, how you doing, sir?
Afternoon from the left coast, Antonio here.
Love it. And then Brenda, my partner in crime over here, who's been on the show as well a bunch of times. She's with us as well.
Yeah, and yeah, this voice is probably not as recognizable as some of you guys' voice, but yeah.
we're all recognizable in some sort of way. But all right, so now we got that out of the way, and I want to I'm gonna try to leave the same format that we do when we have the club together, where I like ask a question, then just leave it open to whoever wants to answer first and chime in, right? Instead of just like picking on somebody. But I think what's interesting to me, which I feel like we never really got into or had the time to completely dive into, was what was like the thing that made you guys actually long to be a part of this, right? Because I think, it sounds easy in theory, right? Oh, it's like, okay, there's a couple people meeting up via Zoom virtually, whatever it might be. And yeah, like the actual aspect of just logging onto your computer and doing it is not anything strenuous, but it takes a lot to really commit yourself to consistently be a part of it on a regular basis, and to not only sort of be there like a fly on the wall, but the reason why you guys in particular are sort of on this episode is because you also were really going out of your way to like get the most out of the experience. I feel like that we all were coming together to do. So whoever wants to kind of go first, I would love to kind of just hear what was going on in your life, your motivation or whatever you were searching for that made you kind of reach out and say, hey, can I be a part of this thing that you're trying out, right? Which, again, at the beginning was like nobody knew what the fuck it was going to be. We were all just kind of figuring this thing out together. So I'm just curious, what was the motivation, if you will? And this is how it usually starts, is like
to be polite.
A quick moment of silence for the politeness before somebody decides to jump in. This is exactly what our masterminds are like, so you're getting the real deal here.
I'm not even on mute, so Jade here checking in. I'll just kick us off. That way we can rip the Band-Aid. So I don't know the order for us meeting compared to Chelsea and Antonio, but I remember specifically, in 2020, and I was temporarily laid off from the work I was doing. I was really at home and kind of just scrolling through social media. I actually think you and I connected just on the phone a couple of times from managing the lines back at the Breakfast Club, where you probably recognized my number at some point, and I followed up there with the commentary because it was a part social justice, part just being really interested in what was going on the front end. But once I followed behind the scenes and really saw what you were doing, what you were building, there's a lot of like serendipity there for me. There was a lot of alignment of just trying to dream bigger and create something on your own outside of what people perceive for what they thought was cool, of like, oh, a producer from the Breakfast Club. But I was like, but what is he doing after this? And I think that's always the question I've been asking you, like, what's next? What are we doing? And so there have just been so many times that things come up with this group that just become completely aware for me that there's something bigger kind of aligning the stars for us being connected. Whether, I think the three of us, you, Brent, and I, were in Puerto Rico like literally a week apart and just could not sync it up, and it just happened. We were going there, and then I think that realistically just having the real talks like behind the scenes and understanding that all of us coming from different backgrounds, upbringing, and East Coast, left coast, just having some of the same like millennial and the gen right behind it, inner crises of like, what are we doing here and how many fucks do we have left to give is really what like sold me. And I was just in, and I say that I'm being like a little flippant, but like I literally have a jar here that's like, it says that's where I'm at. So when I sit at my desk. So there's a little bit of a dark humor in there for me. I think that there's a lot of transferable skills in just what I'm looking to invest in personally, but also into a group that I can see the returns like impacting community just beyond what we do from day to day. And that's what's always brought me back, is exactly what you said after, these calls. Even if it's a long day, it's really energizing, and it's good to catch up with a group of people that kind of just get it and that are going through some of the same things and have a bigger North Star and a bigger mission that drives them outside of what we kind of see around us. So that's really my full circle. And here we are almost 4 years later. And it's interesting to look back on, just I can see the growth, and I can see in everybody and also in myself. And there's sometimes that I'm so impressed and have to remind myself of that when I'm reflecting in real time to like keep going, and of just dreaming bigger and not even knowing what the end result's going to be, but it's something beautiful for sure. So I'm all in. Yeah, no.
And I love so much of what you said. I think, you and I, we really started interacting consistently when I was doing like the Instagram lives during the pandemic, I think. And that's when we kind of began to build that rapport and that friendship. But I think what's interesting is as like difficult of a time period as that was for everybody. Basically, it was just a weird time to have lived through and experience. I think it also it exposed so many of us to maybe what was missing in our lives, right? And then because of the sort of advent of like new technology with Zoom and the lives and all these streams and things like that, it allowed us then to sort of connect with a lot of different people from all over the place potentially, right? And I think what I realized in doing that was just how much I lacked community, and we all have people in our immediate lives that are close to us, that we love, that are friends, that we've spent a lot of time with, and we have, good, bad, weird, whatever it might be, relationships with. But I think, so many of us are sort of, it's almost like we're like dehydrated, like we're dehydrated from substance to a degree, right? Because you can have a lot of amazing people in your life, but not everybody is growth oriented or wanting more out of life in the same way, right? Or sort of is not I don't know, is not. I think there's like this awareness, and it's a gift and a curse, right? And some of us who have awareness as to what's missing or what we want more of, or the potential that life could have for us, right? That's a beautiful thing, but it also is incredibly alienating to a degree, because not everybody around you shares in that same awareness, And I think that is sort of what I felt like, and speaking to your point about the idea of it being energizing the days that we did come together, when there's a lot of times where we're all tired from our days at work, with family, whatever it might be. I think it was always this sort of reminder of like, yeah, I'm not alone in this, right? In this search for more, this hunger for more, this want, this need, that I know that there's more available to me, even though maybe I'm a bit drained or beat up, because it feels like I'm beating my head against the wall trying to convince those around me. Once you step into like this sort of group setting where everybody's on the same page, there is this peace that comes over you, and this reminder of like, okay, I'm not crazy in sort of saying, hey, I want more than my current situation, and I know I'm capable of more than this. So I think that speaks a lot to what you were kind of talking about. I think why this whole thing has been so special. So thank you for sharing your experience this far that drove you here. Whoever wants to go next on this topic of conversation of kind of like your motivation for wanting to be a part of this, and where you were at.
I would go. I saw that brain. It's okay. So for me,
yeah.
I'll go a little backwards. Sure. So at first, I used to watch The Breakfast Club a lot. Like I watch it on TV. I wouldn't listen to it during the daytime. And I was like, I'm sorry, Dramos, I gotta say it. I was like, dang, who the cute guy in the back? He don't never get to say nothing. So then I was like, let me go find him on Instagram. And then like the pandemic happened and he was going live, and I was cutting up on the lives. That's how I met Jade. Love me some Jade. Love her. And then when you asked me to join, I was like, I don't know about that, because I do too much sometimes. But I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And then I was like, oh, I know Jade. I've seen her a couple times. We follow each other. She know how I do. And then like just coming back every month, like actually getting to know these people, and we always are there for each other and building a family, like out, even though we've never met each other in person. Like that's my family, and I love it. And then like you always push the narrative a little bit by challenging us and making us look into ourselves and do the work, and I love that. And that's kind of why I kept coming back, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. I love Brenda. It's my baby. Even though we're the same age, that's still my baby. But I just love it, and I love you guys, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to even be a part of the group.
No, I appreciate that, and the love is mutual. It's funny, I forgot that I had reached out to you about it. I think that's sort of like the beauty of it all is like when we were, especially that you guys are the first kind of guinea pigs of it all. It was really just like, who have I been interacting with on a consistent basis that like, seems like they're on the same page, but like, is sort of like showcasing wanting to sort of have this rapport and this like, this relationship of like really just having conversations about life and things like that, right? And I think that's how Brenda and I connected in the first place, was like this was somebody who was actively trying to participate in something I was doing, and basically participating in my life, right, via virtually, but still being an active member of what I'm doing. And yeah, I think that's I totally forgot that that I had reached out to you guys as well initially about it. So I think that makes it even more of a sort of beautiful thing. I think it was like, in because I always say, like, the idea about this is like, it's literally just me creating what I always wanted to see, right? What I was always looking for at the end of the day. For me, this journey has been very lonely at times, and I always felt like I didn't find my place to sort of fit in. And then it was eventually like, all right, well, how I've sort of said, if you don't see it, create it. And that sort of was I guess the beauty of reaching out to people, where I was like, oh, I think, like, I see that potential of, like, being able to build with these people who have consistently been participating in what I'm doing. And that's, sort of what we've been able to do over the last year. So that's a beautiful thing. I forgot about that. I appreciate that reminder.
I also wanted to add, Chelsea, because I heard you say, like, the work, we were doing the work, and, like, that's what kept you coming back. And it's true. Like, I think there is certain coaches that actually call it that call it, like, the work. But it's that it's simple, but not that it's easy, of, like, coming back to yourself, right? Like, at the end of all of these conversations, like, those reflective questions, all the things, like, and we've had these conversations too, Dramos, where it's like, we don't always need to see eye to eye, but it's you feeling safe enough to reflect on that on yourself, because this is what this community, what I've really, like, set for, is just that we come together in a virtual, like, safe space where we get to grow. We get to do the work on ourselves. And that's, like, at the end of the day, if you didn't leave this group with nothing else but learning how to start, like, managing your own thoughts and emotions, like, that's the win. And that's really a lot of that work that you were saying. Like, that's what we were doing month to month, like, coming back and being like, okay, yeah, these are the beliefs, or these are the thoughts and things that you were raised hearing or seeing exampled for you. But at the end of it, like, what do you think? Like, it was coming back to you and to you. And usually, like, we can't have those same conversations with the people around us, our spouses or our family or whatever, because they have this narrative of, like, who we've been our whole lives, right? Because they've been seeing us from beginning to end, versus you just showed up in this space. And, like, if you would have showed up and been like, oh, I'm Chelsea, this millionaire, blah, 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 we would have not known the difference, right? Like, this was this space where you got to be, like, that new authentic you that you were stepping into. And that is the work, like, challenging yourself. So kudos to you for catching that, because it is the work.
Yeah. That's the other thing, is, like, we would always end it with, like, homework and whatever. And then, so basically the work is, like, whoever got the most out of this were the people who consistently showed up and actually participated in every single way at the end of the day, right? Like, if you were truly showing up, as much as you could month to month, and all the extra things, and actually, like, challenging yourself to sort of do some of the tasks, the homework that we would leave at the end of it, like, those are the people that at the end of it, you're like, damn, I can genuinely sort of see the change that began to occur month to month of all of us coming together. And yeah, so it's definitely, it's beyond just, like, and I hate this. I never want to be like, oh, we're, like, I'm a coach or this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, to me, it's just like, we all came together to have a conversation, and that's the beauty of it. And then through that conversation, we all began to figure out a bit more about ourselves, you know what I mean? And, there are so many times where one of you brought things up, and then it made me think, and then it made me have to process what we're talking about, and like, get to a certain thing, right? Or there are times where I'm, like, way too maybe more candid than I should be about what I'm going through, and, like, I think in that, it's like, yo, yeah, we're all, no matter what, we're all still figuring it out, and we're going to have our good months, our good weeks, we're going to have our ones where we feel off, where shit is just not connecting the way that we feel like it should. But again, that's, like, the beauty of it all, is, like Brent said, it's the authenticity of it that allows all of us to then show up as ourselves, because we know nobody's trying to put on a front of perfection, or that they have it all figured out. The sort of community aspect is the honesty of everybody saying, like, we're all just trying to figure this out, and it's a bit easier and a bit less lonely when we're all sort of sharing our own experiences, our own wins, losses, etc. Together. I think that's the beauty of it all. Kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Bren. But yeah, Antonio, you wanna close us out on that topic?
Yeah, thank you. I remember, I think the first episode, and I didn't know of the Breakfast Club or any of that. So I came in like in a totally
Sure.
different direction, Gen X, but I say with Moon and Millennial, because I think I'm a millennial, but I was listening. I remember the episode I was listening to. I think you were interviewing, like she was a pop star,
Mhm.
and she was talking about the conflict between the her Latinx Hispanic side and like American culture,
Mhm.
and it was just real. Like I really was like, oh yeah, like I can relate to this, and I am a podcast junkie.
Mhm.
I know that, you listen to Gary Vee and those others, and there's just one thing a lot of those guys have in common is that they're like old cisgender white males, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And like they have cool messages, and I understand. I know how to. I'm in recovery, so I know I go into a recovery meeting and I listen for what I need, not listen there to critique. There's always
Mhm.
going to be something there, but like it got to a point of where I wasn't relating as much, or I felt like these guys, they just see it differently.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think I fell in love with the podcast that episode, and I just kind of went on my way. I would listen to it when I was riding my bike.
Mhm.
Stars aligned. I lived up here in near Portland, where it's very, very white. Like
Mhm.
there's not a lot of BIPOC individuals. And so like community was few and far between. And I just kept listening to the podcast and I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And then I heard the call out for, if you want to be part of the Just Be Social Club. And I tell my colleague at work about it. She lives down in LA,
Mhm.
and I was just like writing, and I remember like it was like one day before supposedly like it was going to close, and I was
Yeah.
like, God, I should just do it. I should just do it. And I went and signed up, didn't tell my wife, I just said, I'll just tell her it's her birthday present when she sees where the money is, whatever. And anyway, I signed up for it. And I remember I just heard Lucy speak too. I think I had
Yeah.
joined the Sayola Wealth one with
Yeah.
with the other groups. And it was so good. Like I was like, wow, this is, and I love what people might call self-introspection. Some people might call like hippy dippy stuff,
Mhm.
like I love when you talk about authenticity and those types of things, kind of just being in recovery and like the path I've been going to therapy and doing those things for like the last 15 years is like, trying to do the work wherever I'm at. I asked my therapist for work, give me some work. And I didn't do the work all the time in here, but I tried to play catch up. And
Mhm.
working with Brenda has been, it's been amazing. She's like, we have like the Zacatecas, like, sister brother thing.
Mhm.
And I like her style, and she's just real and authentic, and it's been awesome. And she holds me accountable, and that's something that I really need is
Mhm.
somebody to hold me accountable, and then just to have the community here, people who are just trying to become a better version of their self every time they wake up in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that accountability part of it, right? And it's not accountability of like, oh, you better do this type of thing. It's just accountability of like we're all sharing and we're all like month to month updating each other on progress, right? And in that provides a bit of a structure for like the rest of your time where we're not together. That's sort of the accountability of just having a group of people who are all collectively doing something, and by being a part of that, it makes you sort of have a little bit more discipline in wanting to do the work as well, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are sort of lacking. And I think that's why when they talk about the idea of like you're the product of whatever it is, like what the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? You're the average of that. The reason behind that is because you're inevitably subconsciously taking cues from their behavior as well, right? So the way that they view life, the way that they participate in life, you're inevitably going to mimic it or mirror it in some sort of way, or you're going to have some sort of reaction, even if it's the polar opposite of like a visceral reaction to it. But you are in some sort of way going to be affected and touched by them, good or bad, by the people that you're around, right? And that's why it's so important, like the beauty of modern technology and social media and podcast and all the shit that we have now, it's like you can really kind of craft those friendships, those relationships with people who are not even necessarily, you know, those you see on a regular basis in person, you know what I mean? And shit, there's even, you know, people I consider mentors that I have never even met in my entire life, or that died before I was born, you know? But that's the beauty of all the technology and the books and things like that, is like making an effort to be influenced by people who actually, you know, are on the same page as you, or align with how you see your life sort of shaping up, or how you want it to shape up at the end of the day. And I think also, I mean, I think I kind of want to, because I feel like we haven't gotten into this either as like as a group, but like I know for me, I didn't grow up talking about this shit at all, right? Like my parents weren't cognizant of this type of stuff, of like talking about, you know, feelings, or expressing that, like, you know, you were missing something, or that there was something wrong, or whatever it might be, right? Or the idea of wanting more than the norm. You know, I think for me, my experience for sure was like, you know, my dad grew up incredibly poor, so for him it was like, how dare you complain when you have everything I never had, right? There's nothing wrong for you in your life, like you have nothing to complain about, essentially, right? So like me expressing lack of fulfillment or longing for something to him was like, you're not being grateful for all that you have in comparison to the way that I grew up, you know? And obviously that's like playing the trauma Olympics at the end of the day, right? And everybody's going to lose. There's no like winners and losers when it comes to comparing who had it worse off than the other. Like all of our trauma, all of the things that we struggle with are very real to each and every one of us, regardless of our background or where we came from. But I think particularly when we're talking about communities of color, there is this sort of survival mechanism of let's not even address those problems, or we don't even have the privilege of addressing those problems because we have so much other shit to worry about. You know, there's so much other struggle sort of happening outside of our doorstep, that like we have to just like be tough and put on a face because this is just the way things are, right? And I think it's like our generation and you know, has sort of been able to stop for a second and question and say like, hold on, why does it have to be this way though? Why do we have to be in constant survival mode, right? Why are we sort of just okay with the crumbs at the end of the day, right? Like the sort of spiritual crumbs of just sort of everything being okay, but it not being great, it not being exactly what you want it to be to a degree, right? And I think that's sort of you know, the beauty of a lot we're talking about too. But I'd be curious about other people's like backgrounds and experiences growing up. And Brent, I don't know if I missed you on anything that you wanted to add when we were talking about kind of coming together with the Just Be Social Club. I think you and I were on the same page of like wanting to build community. I don't know if you had anything you want to interject before I move on to that next point.
Yeah, no, I think that was a thing, especially after you had developed like the pillars, and that's when it was like it was more clear to me of like this is what we're going to be building within the community. I realized that in the last year and a half of working together, of just being like, oh shit, like I really do like to build community. I didn't really know that there was like a market, like a job for it, really, right? Mm-hmm. And I started doing it online with you, and that led to a lot of local stuff as well. But I think at the end of the day, like being able to know that you're in a space where you're going to be talking about things that help move you forward. Because I don't know about you guys, but with me, I find myself in some of those friendships or relationships that are just, you know, whether they're family or whatever it is, like it's really hard for me to be having those like very surface level conversations now, like, or hearing people just, you know, bitch and complain about other people or their current circumstances or realities. Like this space really allowed for me to be like, oh, I'm going to be in a room with, we are going to go through things that we don't want to go through or that we don't want to be going through, but we're also like in this growth mindset together where we're going to be looking for answers and seeking ways to support each other versus not. And that was like a huge part of this group for me. And Antonio is one of the ones who's not in our OG club. So at this point, we've moved through a couple clubs. So he had a little bit of a different experience and had some more one-on-ones with me, which is probably why he was talking about the accountability, because I don't think it was like accountability of like, you're in trouble if you don't do this, Antonio, but it was more of like that, like, hey, if this was a struggle, like what about it, you know, what became more important, or how can we look at this different, and coaching him through those things. And I think that's more of the accountability, like, hey, we know things change and change or shift. If you're pivoting, cool, what are you pivoting to? And so I just want to add that in there, because that was some of those follow-up questions with that accountability. Like, if you're not being where you want to be, then what's becoming more important, or what's the big obstacle? So just for any of you guys who might feel you're in the same boat.
No, yeah, I appreciate
Dramos, I just want to add what Brenda just said. Yeah, definitely. It was, I think Brenda's her process and all the work that she's done with being a coach is plays into this, like, intuition. Along with her intuition plays into, like, she just kind of knows, like, she, there were things that I was like, I would say I was kind of waffling on, and she was like, well, you're telling me this, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it was more of holding me accountable for not backing down on things that she could see that were super important to me, that if I have an out, I'm going to take that out and just sit on the sidelines. But so yeah, it's been incredible for her to be like, oh yeah, you just need to do this. Tell me what date you're going to do it by. And I can't wait to see what it looks like,
Yeah, no, I mean, to that point, I think this is what I think people don't get. Sometimes you're too close to the problem, and I'm using problem loosely, but you're too close to the problem to see the solution, right? And at times you just need people around you who care and are, on a bit of an elevated awareness to the, in comparison to the average person, to just sort of help you gain a little bit of clarity on that, right? And it's even like, that's why therapy is so powerful. I was talking to somebody recently who was like, oh, I'm on the fence about therapy because I feel like, how can this person know me better than myself, right? And I'm like, but it's not even about that. It's literally about them just helping you process this and helping you have clarity in your thought process so you can begin to see the solution. Because again, we're all so close to it, and we're inundated with the problems and the issues of our everyday lives and the things that we're working through, that oftentimes we can't sort of see the solution that is right in front of us. Like I met up with, one of our, I won't say them by name, but I met up with somebody from one of our groups, and they were sort of telling me about one of their frustrations or whatever, and it was like, within a couple minutes, I was like, you realize, like, everything you're looking for, you're already there. You just literally probably have to ask one or two people, and it's there. And then they were just like, oh shit, like, it's been there the entire time, but it just wasn't exactly the way that I thought it would look, so I couldn't see it in front of me. You know what I mean? And then me having a zoomed out perspective on it can see a different angle that maybe they didn't, right? And that's sort of why having dialogue with people who are on the same page is so incredibly important, because you're kind of getting that instant feedback loop that allows you to maybe see things that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I think that's what so many of us are missing. I mean, for me growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't have friends that I felt like I could truly confide in. Even as an adult, that's a difficult thing to find. Especially as a male as well. To have confidants that you can bounce really vulnerable ideas or concepts or feelings off of to sort of find yourself in. But I mean, that kind of brings us back to the sort of next thing I wanted to get into, is just how many of us grew up. I'd kind of like to hear a little bit of some of your guys' experiences of when you were lacking something or you were looking for something. Did you have safe spaces growing up to have those conversations? And I think the beauty of this is, like, all of us grew up in different parts of the country, right? And into different families, different experiences, and there's something that's drawing us all together, even though those differences are very obvious and very loud. So in that sort of spirit, I'd be curious for you guys to share a little bit about your experience sort of growing up as well. And we could use the.
I'll go first. I'll go first. Because Jay looking like not me again. Well, growing up for me, essentially, I'm Black, right? Mm-hmm. I'm mixed. I'm Caribbean, but essentially, I'm Black. Sure. And we don't talk about nothing. Like, your feelings hurt, suck it up, keep pushing. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Like, So there was never really a safe space outside of myself to talk about how I was feeling or what I was going through or what made me uncomfortable. I didn't have the luxury of that because everybody's like, well, we came from the Bahamas, we did this and this, and it's like a whole lot of bunch of different things. And I'm like, but I'm feeling empty, not worthy. Like, where do I go with these feelings? And now that I'm 30, I'm loving it over here. Now that I'm 30, I just say what I want to say. And if I'm like, you know what, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm going to over communicate how I feel. I want you to know how I feel. You can take it or leave it. But like going through this experience, I feel like, because like I lost a relationship over the course of our yearly thing, like learning to put me first and respect my feelings and put it on the table. I learned that in this group, that my voice matters. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to let people know how you feel in real time. I didn't have that growing up, but I have that now. And I found my voice more so doing the work in this group. And you guys actually care about how I feel or what I want to say in my opinions. And that's kind of where I am now.
Oh, that's beautiful. That touches my heart. Yeah. But again, like, so you and I didn't know each other in real life or didn't grow up together or anything like that, but like I resonate with that story so much as well, right? And I think that what I'm like really trying to get at is I feel like we all exist in our own sort of world, in our own bubble, and we oftentimes think we're alone in what we're struggling with or what we're suffering with, right? And the reality is there are so many people that relate to what we're going through, what we feel in some sort of way, and we're not alone in it. And I think the more that we have this open dialogue, the more we realize that. And there's something healing about that, right? It doesn't solve everything, and we're always going to be on this path of learning and getting better and struggling and undoing past things. But there's something really comforting about knowing that you're not the only one going through that, right? That you are, having sort of this shared struggle, this shared experience that, that you can learn from one another, and that, I don't know, it's just not as isolating as it felt. Like as a kid, it felt really isolating, right? The sharing in those emotions, it felt like you literally are on a planet by yourself and nobody gets you, and everybody else seems to be happy with what they've got, and you seem to be the one who can't figure it out, right? And I know that I think that's the energizing part, is like there's a sigh of relief that comes over you when somebody shares like what you shared, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. I feel like there's a little bit of peace that comes over sort of having that shared struggle together, which I think is a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing that. Who wants to go next in that same conversation? Okay, Jade.
Okay, so también una mujer negra aquí, and as a Black woman myself, who I learned Spanish in school. Like when I say Black, my roots just come from a very mixed family where we have like some New Yorkers, we've got some Dominican, but like you've met my mom, so hopefully as we go into childhood, she will not listen to this episode. I love you, Mom. It's not about you. We're gonna keep going. But I'm giving the context for our audio listeners that I overlap in cultures just through my love of being like multi-hyphenate, and I've always been that way as a kid. I was a theater kid. I am a very fair-skinned Black woman, and I mean, I've got my sunset ring light over here and some bronzer on because it gets real pale. I am lighter than everyone on this call, like in the true sunlight. So growing up, I had a lot of alienation at one point that was, the question of just like, what are you? And going to, schools where, I was the only Black child in the classroom for probably all the way up until middle school in a lot of cases, or one or two. And in that particular situation, I also experienced, being inundated with whiteness around me. And that also created another layer of like identity of being like, but you are Black and this is your culture and this is what we're instilling in you. And so the thing that we often see in the Black community is, the way to shine and the way to rise above per se is to assimilate or associate my uniqueness with brilliance. And I'm saying that in quotes for the fact that, I worked to overachieve, and that led to the perfectionism and some of the other pieces. Whereas now, I'm in a full 360 spiritual journey of like eldest daughter syndrome on like my own thing to, at one point it felt like isolation. At another point, it's really just, I think I shared with you guys in the group yesterday on that healing on your own time and letting others around you do that too. And looking for a life where I strive in some ways and some days to just really be like, you know what? I really wish I could just be the mediocre, girl out here that is getting the same accolades that I see in other spaces that I'm in, where I'm having to advocate twice over for those who look like me and those who culturally align with my upbringing and what I understand to my experience, but they don't see it because I may be getting into the room on some unspoken piece of just like people don't know what I am. I do know for a fact, you guys know, like my background is, I'm a project manager, but also like I work in HR. And I joked with my husband at one point that there was a good 5 years that I found out later in a record when I was hired at one of my first jobs. They checked white on the box and like did not know. And I only happened to see it when I was getting a promotion at one point. And my husband was like, no, don't change it. Like, I said, no, these records need to be right, So yeah. I'm just looking at that like full circle at the point of, what I thought I wanted was really a projection of what others were feeding me for the majority of my childhood. And that projected in ways where, I did the music thing. I would do, the modeling, I'm, gonna want to be this big star and all these other things. And now I just want like peace in my own little, like writing my best-selling books and finding multiple streams of incomes and being able to have financial freedom and flexibility to travel, do the world, dream bigger, and do all those things I want to do without needing the brilliant piece attached to it. Like, I think that that's a given. We all are in our own way. And that's the piece that's really where I'm trying to instill, I have a daughter that even now I learn from her in a lot of ways because her experience is different from mine, where it's one of the things where like you talk about my mom being on your comments. My mom and my dad are both like darker than me. So the gene just skips around in my family. We're really like all over the place in terms of like, the colors of Benetton and what we look like at a family gathering. Sure. And my daughter is brown skin, like a combination between myself and my husband. And so her experience growing up is obviously different than mine, just in terms of little quirks and things that I see that she is all about. She's an Aries, she's ready to go like fight the power, and that's just that generation of children anyway. And being like, it's not right, she's an injustice will not be unknown to her. And I think about some of maybe the political correctness that was like instilled into me, or what we call like respectability politics, and just how I navigate through rooms and try to find a balance, because it's a skill set, right? Like we can pull on those levers and use it when we need to, but there's two sides to it, because like I'm here with you in this group in the evening, and that is just a different hat that I feel like I put on. But I've really worked, especially over the last 4 years, and what pandemic like ripped us apart, and really found identities for those who wanted to do the work of just like, I am all of that and I am all of those things, and it is okay to be all of those things without having to put a label on it. So I just really think that's another piece of alignment where you and I, when you were going forward with the pod, and I would understand the upbringing of like life as a gringo, and I was like, I need a word for that in the light-skinned Black woman that like is just fighting the fight from the inside of like, you don't understand my journey of just making sure people get it and are able to connect in that way. And so that's been one of the pieces that I look to unlock every day, whether that was through in my 20s in therapy and trying to figure that out and writing, and then just being able to articulate it in a way now that aligns with whether that's other generations coming up behind us and building that community, or just people that we see each other in. So like, for each one of you, and listening to you guys' stories over the years and the calls that we've been on, it's very much alignment of just like, I see you, I hear your story, there's pieces of that in there for me, and it's what keeps bringing me back. I love it so much. And I'm so happy to be in a place where like, it's not something that we are ashamed to speak about, and that is really what the community feels like as a whole. There's no way to like I wish I could bottle up that feeling and sell it, and I know that's what we're doing with Just Be as a whole. So we gotta keep that going, which is why, again, I always volunteer of like, we're manifesting the next thing, like our retreat PR, and just bringing everybody there. And I see it, I see the vision, and it's really inspiring, even when it comes from a place where we all have like our traumas and our pains that we've worked through. Like, it's really, if you keep going, the only way out is through, and it's so beautiful on the other side. So we have to take it all in stride. And that's really what brought it for me, 360.
No, that's beautiful. Like it's like, You're talking a lot about like surrender, even, right? Like getting over perfectionism with just the idea of surrendering to life and surrendering to your authentic self without being concerned about how it affects those around you. I know Chelsea touched on that as well. And I think even just like piggybacking off of this concept of why I wanted everybody to kind of share a bit about their own upbringing, there's obviously differences, but there's similarities, there's connection. And there's also, I think, bigger than that, the effect of us all sharing. There is sort of a silent power that comes from, everybody sharing their truth. And I think we as human beings, no matter how evolved or how much work we do, we're still those same kids that are looking for validation or connection in some sort of way, right? We're looking for somebody to tell us that it's okay to be us. And there's no shortage of people in this world or the way society and life is set up that tells you no, you have to conform to what's the norm of this, right? And I think the beauty of like us together, even just in this conversation, this hour-long conversation, is like it reinforces that muscle of you being okay just being yourself, right? Being your authentic self, because all of us just sharing gives you that cosign, that inner wounded child that we all have. It's like no, there's a lot of people telling you have to be more like them, but here are people who are co-signing you being just good enough as you are, who you are, right? Your authentic self, your authentic version of yourself. And it might not make sense to everybody, but like us each sharing in our story then gives us, I think, a little bit of a reminder of the importance of our authenticity, and that, reminds us to find the strength in that, which I think is the beauty of all that we're talking about. So thank you for sharing that. That resonated a lot with me as well. And Antonio, what about you?
That was beautiful, Jade and Chelsea. Thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of also say, I also wanted to start. I just turned 50, and I've been in corporate America for like the last 12 years, so I think my story is different in that way, that it's one of those things where I was 50 and I'm married and have kids, and everything is going well there, but like I still, like, there was still something in me that like wanted more. And it was the community connection, what I was hearing. And I grew up, as funny as it sounds, like, I mean, I grew up in Wyoming, of all places. And my dad was pretty hardcore La Raza from Mexico. Like, he was always fighting like the people in the newspapers, saying this is our land, and you guys took our land from us. And he was also older too. My dad just passed away during COVID, 2021. He was 97 when he passed away. So I grew up with an older dad who only knew how to do was work hard. All he knew how to do was work hard. He crossed the border multiple times, and so that was a value he had instilled in us. And my mom was, she was white American, and she didn't really talk about her feelings. She had her own trauma, and yeah, there was just like I grew up in a dysfunctional household, untreated, recovering alcoholic, and a very codependent mother. And we just didn't talk about things. But I spent a lot of time in my room daydreaming and pretending I was playing for the New York Knicks. And yeah, it took to, then I just hid behind a bottle. I hid behind drugs and alcohol. And then when I finally got sober and started doing the work in 12-step, then I was able to have like raw conversations like this. But I think, even having been doing that for the last 10, 15 years, like the spaces I was in were definitely more like Eurocentric. Like there wasn't a lot of Latinos, like, or Latinx people, BIPOC people in the rooms, doing introspective work. And then, that looked like me, that had similar experiences, that, and we bonded over alcoholism, but that was kind of as far as it went. And when I found this club, I was like, oh wow, like these people are like, they're reaching for more, like they're reaching for this intangible, that energy or source, or whatever it is, And so, yeah, that was my route, and it just makes it easier. It makes it easier for me because of some of the work I did, work in therapy, to like, I was like, what do I expect out of this? I'm probably like 15 years older than most of you, like I have to say it was humbling. Like I'm coming back, and I was like, okay, what do I expect from this? And like, I just like dove in, and by doing that and by bringing myself and being transparent and open, and the work I did with Bren is like, things came out of every session that I did that was like, oh shit, like I got a lot out of that, and it was yeah, it's been definitely much more than I expected. And even if we only see each other once, maybe twice a month, so yeah, it's been amazing.
No, that's awesome, and I appreciate you being so open with that, and I love the fact that even just you sharing that you're 50, or that you're older than that. I think like what you maybe you don't realize it, or you do, but you're actively showing up authentically, and in doing that, any perceived judgment, like I'm not even batting an eye about it. I remember even when you told it to me, I'm not batting an eye, because you're owning that thing, right? Like, and that I bring that up just as an example of like when you can confidently begin to own the parts of yourself, right? Because I'm sure in theory, kind of to what maybe you're alluding to, it's like, maybe there's a part of you that's like, what do I have to relate to people who are 10 years younger than me, right? I have a different life experience, or whatever it might be. And I think when we are able to get over ourselves a little bit, right? That's when like all of a sudden life really begins to open itself up to us, because we're truly just sort of like, it's like the idea of living in accordance with nature to a degree, right? Where you're just open, and you're actually a part of something, you're a part of what's happening around you, and you're not looking at it with the lens of judgment, but you're just being open to what experience may follow from it. And that's where the good stuff lies in this life, right? And that's even for me, where when I began to own my otherness, right, or not feeling Latin enough, it's like all of a sudden I got fucking everything that I was striving for, right? It was because when I owned that, I allowed myself to then just be open to life, and allowed that sort of openness to then draw the right people to me. That's what began to happen, right? In my vulnerability, in me owning the shit that I was always self-conscious about, all of a sudden others saw themselves in me, and it drew the very people that I've always been looking for to me, essentially, right? And that's sort of the beauty of what you were talking about right there. And I think is sort of the overlying theme of that idea of surrender that I think we've each touched on in some sort of way today. And Bren, you wanna add a bit about your experience, and then I just have I think one last thing. I want to be respectful of everybody's time as well. But I know Bren has her own stories as well from growing up, and things that she's gone through for sure that have shaped her into the amazing coach that we've all been talking about today.
Thank you guys. Thank you. No, yeah, I think my childhood, for those who don't know, like I grew up in LA. I grew up in Watts, Compton. My parents separated by the time I was like 12. So my dad lived in Compton, my mom stayed in Watts. And so growing up in those neighborhoods, like gang violence and just violence in general is some of the norms that I wrote down what you said, Antonio, the untreated recovering alcoholic. I think that's a lot more like prevalent in those neighborhoods, because people are just like, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I just drink to celebrate, and drink when I'm sad, and drink when whatever, right? So it's such a norm. And for those of you guys who don't know, there's something called ACEs, and I would recommend anyone to go. You could just Google like adverse childhood experiences, and there's a little test you can take, and it talks about, like, did someone in your home was like in prison? Were they doing like alcohol or drugs, and all these other questions. But once you start taking that test for yourself, you realize like, okay, like I may not be like this perfect picture, but also because of these adverse childhood experiences, like the fact that I'm even here is already huge, right? And so I grew up in that. I grew up in that environment. I grew up in that broken home type thing. My mom both my parents became parents when they were teenagers. And so there was just all of these things stacked like quote unquote against, right? And just coming from LA, I was probably supposed to be that statistic too. But it was that simple act of like, again, it wasn't easy. but it was simple of like, I had to move, I had to change my environment, I had to switch things up to see what else life had to offer and what else I had to offer life when I actually was able to move into an environment that allowed me to feel safe. And I was just sharing that because now I live in a small town in Northern California and I work at a school and I work with a lot of teenagers and I'm seeing them experience some of the same things that I was experiencing and recognizing like that so much of us like flourishes when we literally feel like our nervous system safe enough to take these risks, right? Because when I was in LA, like literally and it's so fucked up now that I as a grown up, right? That I realized like, man, by the time I was like 6 or 7, like I already knew how to recognize like cars that were not like normal to my neighborhood, how to like kind of be on the lookout for drive-bys when drive-bys happen, like how to drop and get to the back. Like all of that was normal to me by the time I was like 7. And recognizing that that shouldn't have been normal was like huge. But all of that to say that it was these changes in these communities, right? The things that we talked about, the pillars, the awareness, the community, still working on that money healing, right? And then having that long-term vision. Antonio, right now that you said, you know, you spent that time in your room daydreaming, I like really laughed because I'm like, that was really me too. Like had a lot of nights with long fights or that my dad never got home. So my mom's up like calling and right? But that daydream, that imagining and all of that I had since I was little. And that I was always like, but why not? Like, I'm gonna dream this and why not can we make it happen, right? So yeah, that's what I have to share for childhood and seeing that our upbringing doesn't have to tell the rest of the story, right? So
yeah, and also I think even just like in sharing that there's so much value, right? You know, I think a lot of us we're programmed to be ashamed of the fact that we didn't grow up in the cookie cutter life, right? And we're programmed to not talk about it because it makes us lesser than, you know, and you know, even like I think my own upbringing and things like that, like I was taught to basically lie because out of embarrassment and shame of like, you know, my parents not having great credit. So we'd have come up with all kinds of elaborate excuses for why, you know, we were going to the shady car dealership to buy a car, you know what I mean? And like stupid things like that, right? And that like just programmed me to just be a steel trap of information that I'm not sharing with anybody from a very young age, you know what I mean? And to normalize the idea of just having all these elaborate background stories to cover things up, right? And to make yourself be on the surface of looking perfect to the outside world as much as humanly possible, right? To fit in. And I think, you know, in even like with Brenda, you know, a lot of the work that she's doing now in the community, in the school and all those things, you know, she's connecting with kids who are teenagers who are coming up in, you know, some difficult circumstances because she has a story to tell, a story to share, right? And her being open about it allows those kids to feel seen and heard and provides them with a safe space to then, you know, share their own experience, but to also see a possibility that is beyond what they've been taught, right? But, you know, it's like healing and I think connection and all these things, they're all on the other side of us being brave enough to just own our story, right? And to recognize, as difficult as it might be, as traumatic of the experiences that we've all had and all those different things, there's also power in all that we've experienced in our life, right? There's also so much to take away from it as well, right? And not that we should, you know, make excuses or you know, not sort of hold people accountable, right? Or put a false glorification on the crazy shit that we've been through. But at the same time, I think when you actually embrace it all, you work through it, you know, you can then turn that pain into something that is powerful for you to then give to the outside world almost, right? And I think that is the beauty of sharing your story, because you really never know who's listening or who needs to hear it in that moment, you know. And that could be a simple interaction with random friends, family, whatever it might be, you know. Like, I know me being open, my parents are beginning, even at their age, to question a lot of the shit that they thought, right? And I see a bit of a difference in my mom and things like that. So, like, you know, there's something beautiful about that sort of domino effect that happens when you begin to really own yourself at the end of the day. And I want to just end on this, because I think Antonio touched on it before, and it's interesting to me. You were talking about how you waited till like the very last minute to like reach out and want to, you know, be a part of this, right? And you're not the first person. Like, I can think of a few people who were like, I kind of wrestled with the idea, you know, of even like, you know, hopping on the Zoom, right? Or even Chelsea, I know you felt like you were a little bit apprehensive about like, am I really, what, you know, this thing you're inviting me to, I don't know if I'm totally into it, you know. And I think it's funny how we sort of like, our mind almost plays tricks on us to a degree, right? Or gets in our own way of things that potentially could be positive for us just because they're different, right? Or they require us, like we were talking about, you know, just being a little bit more open than we're used to, right? That's uncomfortable. And I'd love for you, you know, to sort of, you know, if anybody listening to this is on the fence about wanting to join something like this, right, and they're having that same sort of emotion or you know, apprehension about like putting themselves out there, again, I think there's so much power in each of us sort of seeing one another, validating it, but also holding each other accountable to want to be better, right? So you know, whatever little quick takeaway you would want to give to somebody who's on the fence about, you know, joining something like this, or putting themselves out there and beginning to do some of that work, I think it'd be powerful to hear it from you, not just from you know, me or Brenda at this point. And whoever wants to hop in on that one.
I'll go, because like I feel like Jay looking at me like, you know, they talking to you. It's your turn. Like, it's like the eyes is like, go Chelsea, go. I would say to anybody that's on the fence and thinking about joining one of these groups, go ahead and do it. I mean, you won't know until you try, and you might be surprised with the outcome. Like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, the people that I was going to, you know, be interacting with. And I think it says a lot that we are there for each other, even when you think nobody cares. We all are there, even if it's just a random hey. Like Brenda the other day was like, "Yeah, just checking in. Make sure you check in.
Yeah, the
check-ins matter. People care, and you don't know these people, but you will get to know them." So I say, do it.
Beautiful, absolutely, I love
Go
that.
Jade.
Yeah, I will second what Chelsea said. I also just wanted to call out and make sure that when we talk about ICU, Antonio, just what you shared resonated so much. And I appreciate the fact that I think knowing everybody in this group, that we have probably a culmination of like 20 years that span between us. So we've got all generations are welcome. You know, when we talk about bringing people in, I am probably the opposite. I'm the person that just jumps in head first. I go off of a lot of just vibes. You know, I have my cards and all my other stuff that also came out of that whole 4-year like emotional development. But I appreciate the vulnerability in what you said, and I just want to validate for you how important it is and how grateful I was to hear you express not only your initial hesitation, but the fact that you just show up fully and acknowledge that, hey, it feels a little different from me because you have a different point of view. But it's so beautiful to me that you probably have the ability to make the most impact because you have the experience there. And I think, you know, Dramos said domino effect. I'm thinking like trickle down effect in terms of like the immediate impact to the community and the way that you show up for your family, the way that resonates. You know, we joke when I was talking about with the millennials, like everybody's on that trend of we're woo woo and we're all trying to figure it out. It hits us hard. But I think, and then, you know, generations coming up behind, like my sister is a decade younger than me. So like, I see it, she's closer to where Chelsea and Bren is, in that mix immediately, but that full circle of just like, when we bring everybody along and being able to see the different points of view, it comes together in the way that it should be. So I, think that there's so much alignment there, and I really appreciate, you sharing that as well. And I just wanted to make sure that I got to give you a direct kudos and being like, that's amazing. And it's, again, I think we started at the beginning of this. I thought you were part of our original group the whole time, so I didn't even know. And that's really where we are.
No idea.
Like, we are all, I'm like, oh, he's in another group. So, it's great. But I'll kick it back to Drum and Brent on that one, because what we're building is so much greater than just anything that I can even keep up with at this point. But I'm so excited to see where it's going. And I think that this is the time really for anyone that is listening and that had that moment to wonder, like, how to make the connection and what that spark can feel like. This is what it feels like. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Antonio, you want to?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jade, I accept it. Thank you so much. I'm definitely honored. It's interesting because you can be, I believe you could be with individuals virtually and feel like energy, like I don't think it's just if you're if you're really in that space of intention and yeah, like I really, I will have to say, yeah, if you are listening and you're questioning whether or not you should be here, you probably should, first and foremost, because you're questioning that probably because you're not finding a space that you feel is a space where you feel like you could be safe or where you feel like you could be part of. So you're sitting there, and I was listening, and I was like, I want to be part of that space. I want to be part of that space. And so, yeah, if you're listening, just do it. I think the universe is going to put everybody, it has its own time frame and puts everybody where they need to be. And it's not a mistake, that we're all here together. And yeah, I believe you, Jade and Chelsea, like, the impact this has had on me from just the last, what is it, like maybe 9-10 months of like, I came in here not knowing what I was even coming in here for. And now I've doing something that I really enjoy doing. And I will have to say, I met with Dramos, and it's interesting because it aligns to something someone else told me. He was saying, well, if you're going to be doing your podcast and it's a big world out there. The podcast world is, what if you don't make it? And I was like, I just really am enjoying and loving doing this. Like, I feel it with my heart and soul. And he said, okay, that's where you need to be. And I talked to another friend a few weeks later who is one of our friends that is in the spiritual path. And he said, yeah, this is the year from his guru that he heard that, like, it's following those passions it's following those passions. This is the year to follow your passions. So if you're out there, yeah, come join the familia, man. Like, it's special. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. All you guys are getting me a little emotional over here. In here, you guys share that stuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, shit. I'm a little bit at a loss, to be honest with you. I think I think in just hearing that sort of feedback, because I question a lot of times, am I on the right path of what I'm doing, right? And I still have the part of me that watches a lot of my former peers, and I see their monetary successes, or I see their successes with fame and things like that, and I begin to question the path that I've decided to take that is far more, what I consider to be far more substantive, but lacks that flashy instant gratification, right? And I go back and forth a lot of playing the comparison game, or of wondering if I'm like, my own worst enemy, where I just like am throw away possibilities that could have been and things like that. And and all of you guys sharing that, it genuinely in my heart, I felt like, nah, this is exactly where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, and recognizing, what I'm doing and what I'm being a part of, and the relationships that I'm building are far more fulfilling than any of the fame or money or any of those things that could have come from the other path that I could have taken in this life. So yeah, I mean, this is just like a perfect example of, like, that we're all in this together, and even with these calls and things like that. And I agree completely that even if it's virtually, you could feel the energy, come through. I always say this and it sounds like a broken record, but it's like, like I'm beyond exhausted. I just flew back in and I was like working, literally since I got off the plane. But like every time I finish one of these calls, I feel energized and I'm like reminded of what's important and all that I'm a part of. And I think that is, the real takeaway from like this whole thing is like, it really gives you that energy, in a life, in a society that loves to continue to take from you, right? And that's the beauty of all of us coming together. So, I thank all you guys so much for all that you've shared and all that you said. I'm really touched by it and just reminded of just like how important this slow grind of building something like this really is, and as difficult and as much of an uphill battle as it is to get people to see the vision and to want to participate in what we're really building, that I genuinely feel like could be life-changing for, hopefully thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, hopefully, one day. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for all you guys for, trusting, Brenda and myself for going on this journey with us. And you've given, I'll let her speak as well for herself, but I know we've had conversations where you guys have given us just as much as we've given you, if not more, in this last year that, we've gotten to spend together. So, in this format, it's really been just a great reminder of what's really important. So I thank you guys so much. And Brent, anything you want to add as we kind of close things out?
My phone's on 3%, so I'll keep it very low. But I think, I think I texted you this the other day, Dramos. I was having a reflection and I'm like, instead of us coming over here with the just do it, it's like, come join and just be it, because that is the brand, right? Just be. And I can't put it any other way but that you can find this place where you can come and just be, like, be whoever you need to be. So we just need to be it.
I love it. Well, listen, again, I appreciate you guys. I love you all so much. Everybody in this room, I'm so proud of you. And I'm just so happy that we get to come together and I'm genuinely taking away so much from it in a moment that I felt like I needed it most. And I think that's the power of all this stuff. So thank you guys. If you want to shout out anything you're working on, any projects, your social media, whatever it might be, please do it now. Feel free to take the platform and do with it what you need to.
Yeah, Antonio, go ahead and let people know what you did in 8 months, because it's actually been 8 months. So.
I'm inspired by Dramos. I'm inspired and I'm following him and watching him closely, like a student does a teacher, even though he's my junior. So I am the host of the Multiracial Verse podcast, multiracialverse.com, and we have conversations with inspiring individuals about their multicultural, multiracial, biracial, and allies about their journeys. So come check us out on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you.
Love it, man. So proud of you, brother. You're doing it. You're doing the damn thing. Good for you. Anybody else want to shout anything out there they're working on?
So I will just throw out there, you can follow me on IG at Jade Writes It. That's the newer of the page that just allows the creative, multifaceted opening things. I write everything from resumes for people that are looking for support, because it's tough out there in the job field. If you dream it, I can write it. And that includes, the book and some of the other things I'm working on behind the scenes. But kind of a peek into just my musings and being able to share with everyone. And a lot of the pieces, I'm working on behind the scenes, which this group knows because we've talked about. So it's all in perfect timing. That's my card for you guys for tonight. I trust the timing of my life. That is the one that I pulled in, just the mantra. And that's what we're going to go with. But it's an easy one. Jade Writes It on IG. That's where I'm at. So.
Love it. Chelsea, anything you want to put out there?
Yeah, I'm really not working on anything but a healing journey, and if you want to follow me on my healing journey, follow me on Instagram, it's Chelsea, CHELS_Janae. I know everybody says Zane. It's definitely Janae, ZHANE.
Perfect. Listen, I appreciate it. I think Brett's phone finally died. But on behalf of her and myself, it's always so good to see you guys, and we're both so proud of y'all, and I love you guys very, very much. Thank you so much for hopping on. As always, it's been amazing to get to connect together, and we'll all link up soon, obviously, as we always tend to do. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.
Good to see
Thank you. We love you too. We're taking this show on the road, y'all.
Yes. All right, y'all. Take care. Man, big shout out to my Just Be Social Club family for hopping on the podcast. I'll dive into this when we do the conclusions, Stu, but sometimes you just like, I feel like, oh man, I'm like exactly where I need to be, right? And you just needed like a conversation to kind of confirm that for you. That was this for me, in a very deep way, and I'll get a little bit deeper into that in our conclusions too.
Time for conclusions, Stu.
All right, so again, big shout out to everybody who hopped on, everybody who listens. Like, I hope you saw yourself and heard yourself in this conversation with the members of the Just Be Social Club, who are just incredible parts of my life at this point. And I'm just so proud of the work that we've been doing, and it was really touching. And I'm really weary of like how much I talk or push the brand, and that's probably to my own detriment, because I never want to come across as salesy or that I'm trying to sell you on something. But I really believe in what this can become, and I see the vision so much. I think there's a lot of things I want to just quickly touch on, but even in like a practical sense, for me, like a life-changing moment was getting this podcast, right? Was the idea that my vision was going to be aided and being brought to life, but also I was going to be financially compensated, which then allowed me to go 100% into this, right? And I envision down the road the Just Be Social Club being able to provide that same sort of experience for other people. We are charging a membership, and it's not a lot. It's $55 a month. And I want to be as transparent as possible, but like, where is that money going towards, right? This isn't the idea of me becoming rich off of people or my partner or any of these things. Like, I genuinely envision us being able to say, hey, Tina, you have a great idea for a podcast. Why not bring it to the Just Be Social Club community exclusively, and we'll pay you to create that content, right? And like, that is like empowering somebody from our community to now be able to, depending on how big we are, at the very least, have extra income being yielded in doing something that they love doing while sharing a positive experience or a positive message for those in our community, and that's what I envision it being. I would love to be able to create all of this like original content under this one roof that is really dedicated to those from our community who are growth minded, who are looking to be inspired, who are looking to collaborate and connect. Like, that's what the vision I have for this. And in order to do so, we have to be able to charge something, right? So that there is that money to go around. So there is that money to promote and to bring in more people and to advertise and everything that comes along with it. And now, I want to be as transparent as possible of like the vision, so that you understand you're not just, lining somebody's pockets, some random person's pockets for, random reasons they have extra beer money or something like that. Like, we're genuinely building something here. Like, I feel like, I want to be able to look back in a few years, and we're all going to be able to sort of, in retrospect, be like, wow, I was a part of building something that has become an incredibly important pillar for communities of color, a safe space that we can all come together and collaborate and meet like-minded people and be a part of something, and also get positive content that's actually contributing to our community in a positive manner, rather than something that is sort of to the detriment of our people, which is what we often see in mainstream content on television or social media and things like that. Who knows what this could become. We could be funding TV shows, like all kinds of stuff, like, but it all starts with each of us doing our part, right? And then also, it's not just like a donation thing. Like, you're going to be getting a lot out of this as well. we're going to be doing the masterminds, we're going to be having the conversations, the live streams, and then having, the ability to connect with other people. Like for me, I'm leading these masterminds we've done, but really I'm getting something out of it, just like the, members are. And in a way of like, I get to have beautiful conversations and see myself in other people and gain feedback and just exchange ideas with people. And that's been so beneficial to me, so that's what we're looking to build here. And even, in this conversation today, I wanted to share this, was like, I feel like I am in not a reset mode, but I'm definitely at that point. I think that tends to happen every few years of kind of like, all right, what's the next chapter going to look like for me, particularly, as a creator, there's all types of sort of ups and downs within your life cycle as a creative, and there's a necessity to constantly be evolving, if you want to keep up with being able to create for a living, or being able to keep being passionate about the work that you do. You sort of have to keep moving with the times and evolving, and also challenging yourself to keep it fresh. And, I had to kind of particularly come into this year with the idea and the notion and the feeling like, that this was sort of a year of evolution and change for me. Not to say that I'm not blessed or don't appreciate or don't love what I do, but I also know that there's a new sort of version of me being birthed this year for whatever reason, right? I'm longing for a bit more. I'm longing to dig deeper into different areas, and I'm longing to sort of figure out what the new version of me in 2024, is wanting in terms of his fulfillment, right? And with that, you begin to question everything that you do. And like anybody else, I look at peers on social media, and at times I can find myself getting sort of caught up in wondering if I'm making the right choices, or if this sort of path I've taken of shifting away from being, I hate the word fame. We'll just use fame. Being fame or, riches focused, if me sort of digging deep and wanting to do things of more substance, if I'm being a hindrance to my own quality of life, right? I struggle with that because we live in a world where it feels like the bullshit and the negative get propped up to the top, and the good and the positive are sort of lost in the back burner, right? They're not as popular, or they're not as rewarded or incentivized, And I struggle with that sometimes, of thinking to myself, I was even just having a conversation with somebody recently, and we were both just kind of joking around of, if we decided to just become like a crazy hardcore Republican content maker, or a misogynistic Andrew Tate type of commentary on the world, we would be far more successful than we actually are right now. Like if we chose to just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to feed the bloodlust of people the easier path, even if it's negative, it's going to provide me with quick income, because that's what gets rewarded, right? If I can become a Latin dude going in on conspiracy theories and loving Trump and all these different things, I'd be like a Candace Owens, where I get to be platformed and rewarded because I'm the anomaly in that area, Or again, if I become like Andrew Tate and in a world where toxic masculinity is being shunned, I become the ultimate, toxic man, and get rewarded for my crazy comments and things like that. And I never would do that, but it does feel like, man, why am I choosing the hardest path possible, in my particular given field or industry or whatever? And you go through those phases and those struggles sometimes when you feel like you're not achieving all that you want, or you're hitting a lot of walls and you can't figure out what's next. And to kind of get back to what I was originally talking about, like sitting in these conversations and looking at this group of people that I've built a rapport with, some of which over the last few years, but particularly in these masterminds with Just Be over the last year or so, I'm reminded of what I stand for, who I am, and why what I'm doing is so important, and why I'm exactly where I need to be. Just hearing feedback of people talking about how I've touched their life, even in the most minor way, and I've made a positive contribution in some sort of way, like that is the ultimate reward, right? That can't be bought, and that for me was exactly what I needed to hear. And that to me is a perfect example of what happens basically every time that we get together, is like just by proxy of having that genuine human connection where there's real vulnerability, real connection, real trust, because everybody in that space is on the same page as you, and it's a judgment-free space. It's us just trying to better ourselves. By proxy of you being around that, even if it's just for the hour of a live stream or a conversation, or virtually just communicating back and forth with one another, checking in, things like that. Like, dude, like that is so rewarding, and it's like the recharge that we often need to kind of just keep going on our path. And that's what that was for me today at this conversation. And yeah, I think it's just, again, it speaks to what we're building, what I'm inviting you to be a part of. This is something bigger than myself. It's bigger than my partner, Brenda. It is really, for me, the way that I look at it, it's like a lasting legacy that can continue on beyond my time here on this earth. I want this to grow into a real community, and a real safe space where it's like, yo, people who look like us, who come from our backgrounds, know that they can come here to better themselves, to find the thing that they've been searching for, the thing that's been missing in their life, the lack of inspiration, or just a safe space to be authentically them. This is the hub, the home for that. That's what I'm trying to build. And anybody that is a part of it, that decides to sign up, you are going to be a contributing member to building something that hopefully has a grand impact on our community for generations to come. And that's what this is all about for me. In the short term, we're all selfishly going to hopefully get some of that fulfillment or belonging that we've been looking for. And in the long term, we're all contributing to something that really, I genuinely feel like could have a great impact on our community, like I said, for generations. And I invite you to be a part of that. So it is open now. We're doing like a soft launch for everything as we begin to kind of roll out and fill up what the content is going to look like inside of this. We're doing it through Patreon, which is an app. The only comparison I can make, and I hate even doing this, but it's like OnlyFans minus the porn, if you will, right? You subscribe on there. There's an app as well you could get on your computer, and through it you have access to this membership where you can view all of the exclusive content. Some of it is some videos, some of it is going to be exclusive podcasts that I do on there. Everything from I'm talking about doing a lot of different things on here. Like study, like lo-fi mixes for your study and work too. I'm going to start making exclusive ones just for that. Like a lot of one-stop sort of lifestyle type of content and connection. There's going to be community boards where you can post things that you're working on, get feedback, connect with others. Like we've talked about sort of this. I want to be able to bring people who have we had Jade on this. She's she writes, right? So she can help you write a dope resume. She's working HR and all these things. She does work in HR. Now you can connect with somebody like Jade who is helping you. Oh, you're looking for a job. Boom. Well, Jade is actually an expert in this. That she's your community member. Why not reach out to her? Like that's what we're building with all these things. And we're gonna have the monthly masterminds as we always do, where I have a live stream and we just talk about different, sort of parts of the philosophy of the 4 pillars of conscious living and life in general. So yeah, that's what we're rolling out. And again, Patreon is the app that we're doing it through. And right now it's like a friends and family rollout. So those who are a part of the other Just Be Social clubs, the originals, they're going to get the invite to begin to hop on as we start rolling it out and really building it out. And those of you who listen to this podcast, I consider you guys friends and family as well, so we're still keeping it kind of like hit me up if you want to be a part of it. The difference is, you reach out to me via Instagram at DJ Dramos or email Brenda at mindofayounglord.com, and we'll send you the link for the Patreon, and then you can, subscribe there. And again, this only becomes as big as we allow it to be, essentially, right? Everybody who signs up for it is being a part of creating something that I think really has the potential to change our community in a positive way forever. So if you want to be a part of that, you want to do something for the community and really be a founding member of what we're doing here, please, join us in this sort of next couple of weeks as we do this soft rollout of the friends and family. It's $55 a month. It's nothing crazy. Not to cheapen, anything. I know for everybody, we all have different things going on, but I promise you, we are doing our best to make sure that the $55 that you're investing in yourself, because that's what you're doing. Basically, this is an investment in yourself, that you're going to get a return of 10 times that, if not more. We're working overtime, burning the candle at both ends, so to speak, for now, just trying to say, hey, what other things of value can I bring to anybody who chooses to be a part of this right now? So if you want to be a part of it, DM me at DJ Dramos or email Brenda at mindofyounglord.com. I'll put the link in the show notes for that as well. And we'll send you the link, and you can hopefully join and be a part of it and join us on this journey of what I think is really going to be a transformative community experience for our community. I keep using that word community, but yeah, that's my vision for this. I really do feel like this is going to be one of sort of my lasting legacies that I get to leave behind, that I get to have contributed to our amazing culture and our amazing people. So that's what I'm hoping. But again, it only goes as far as we allow it to. So in the same way that Coca-Cola doesn't have to, justify why they're charging you whatever, $2 for a bottle of soda, whatever it might be. That's the irony as well, by the way. I feel like I'm overcompensating for the value, and I always want to be transparent, but isn't it ironic that we have no problem buying into these random companies from people who are there just to make a profit? They don't need to essentially justify why we're buying into them. But us as creatives, as smaller guys in this thing, we feel the need to over-justify why somebody should support us, right? And it's also funny how people are so, those in our lives or whatever it might be, so many friends. How many times have you done a creative project and it's bro, how are people not running out to support me in the way that they should? People you have a relationship with, right? There's always that meme that goes around. It's support your creative friends the same way you support a bunch of rich strangers, via Amazon or whatever brand or whatever it is. And I think it's just human psyche in general. Just sort of food for thought on things as I digest all that I'm working out right now, and how I also could be a better member of the community in general as well. But yeah, just things to think about. But again, this is our moment to build something, and I really feel passionate about it, and I invite you to join us and to come along and to be a part of that ride, that journey with us. And also real-time feedback. I want you to tell me what you're looking for, what you want more of, how we could do things better. This isn't just me. This is me opening things up to all of you guys who are listening, everybody, from our community who still hasn't discovered this and is searching for something more. That's what Just Be is. Just Be is not, that's why it's not, DJ Dramos' social club. It's something bigger than myself. I might be the vehicle or the vessel right now, but this is for all of us, and this is, for all of us to come together, and nobody is bigger than the community, and we're all here to get together and learn together and grow together. So I'm merely the vehicle for it right now, but this is all of our thing, and I really feel passionate about it, and I invite you to be a part of it and contribute if you're able to, and that's that. So yeah, I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. I hope to see you in the club. I hope to be able to connect with you on a deeper level, like I've been able to do with these amazing people via the Just Be Social Club. So yeah, hit me up if you have any questions or anything like that. I'm always free to hopefully answer anything or just give feedback or get feedback, whatever it might be. With that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will catch you on Thursday for our Thursday Trends episode. So then, stay safe. We'll talk soon. Peace.